feedback.
Hey, what's going on, good people, and welcome back to Beyond the Resume. As always, thank you for gracing me with your presence. So today, before we begin into the topic, I'm going to ask you this question. Who are you? I want you to sit with that. If a stranger, if a random person, if your mom, if your pastor, if your wife, if your child, whoever were to ask you that question, who are you? How would you answer that? So before we get to today's topics, I need you to like, share, and comment wherever you're streaming it. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on iTunes, Spotify, wherever this is being streamed, there's a couple more places. I need you to do all those different things because I need you to show me love. Whenever you show me love, the name Beyond the Resume kind of bubbles to the top a little bit. So I'm able to bless some more people. So please put me in a position so I can be able to do that because I want these conversations to actually trigger some more thoughts. This is the season where a lot of us are going through that motion of understanding what it means to be transformed and not conformed, being transformed by the renewal of our minds. And the reason that happens is because now these conversations are striking so many different people. These are conversations that households are having now. I said in the last episode that I released that I'm understanding a change now, and I'm actually seeing it. There's a shift right now that's happening in my own family. And I thank God for that, where we're getting to this point to where we're having conversations we'd never had ever. I was going to say in years, but literally ever. We've never had these types of conversations of just what it means to really just have ownership of different things. We talk about it amongst our friends, and every podcast or every, I don't know, reel that I watch on IG, we all talk about ownership, right? It's like this highlight thing, but I never talked about it with my parents. I never talked about it with my brothers and my sisters, but now this conversations are happening. And when I say ownership, I'm not just talking about businesses and properties and enlarging our territory. No, I'm talking about owning our gifts, owning our purpose, and understanding what that means, understanding the responsibilities that come with being here. Those are the conversations that we're having right now. There's this transformation that's literally happening. I'm loving it, and it's so clear right now. So once again, I need you to like, comment, and share because I want these topics to be the center of your conversations as well. Okay? So let's get into it. I asked the question, who are you? I was reading this document in CNN. It's an article that came out a few days ago. It might have been yesterday or the day before. And it was talk about the suicide rate as an all-time high. So they're showing the different data trends and looking at year-over-year numbers and month-over-month and what's happening between this quarter and last quarter. And it's a big change. I'm not trying to dismiss it at all, but the suicide rate has gone up astronomically. But then also, remember a few months ago, the Surgeon General also said that we're also in a new epidemic, the epidemic they call loneliness. So these two go hand in hand. One leads to the other. But we have to get to the root cause of this. One of the things that just struck me when I was reading the CNN article, it explicitly called out a certain demographic of people who are getting pinpoint right now, or who suicide rates have just skyrocketed in the community. And they explicitly called out individuals that are making less than 40,000. The reason that bothered me is because it's almost as though we always have to put on a social economic stance to something to say that, well, these people weren't making 40,000, maybe the suicide rate would be up there. But I submit to you that I don't think it's about money. I don't think it's about any of those things. In fact, I'm almost positive it's not, because I'm a firm believer, and I know firsthand that when you put your joy and happiness into things that can disappear overnight, you'll never truly have security in that joy or that happiness. When you put joy into monies, when you put joy into different titles, when you put joy into achievements, you'll always be chasing something, because once you get there, that joy, that happiness only lasts for a moment. So when I read the article, I was reminded of a conversation I had with a close friend of mine. And we had this conversation a few months ago, and unfortunately, they were let go of the job through the entire layoff. Quite a few jobs actually going through that right now. So my heart goes out to every single one of you, believe me. But this particular conversation was different. This conversation was different because My friend was going through it. They were upset. They had every right to be. They were going through all the emotional states. They were frustrated. They were angry. They were confused. They were sad. They fell into this place of just questioning everything. They didn't know what was going to happen next. They had every right to be going through those emotions. But one of the things that struck me was this particular comment. As we're having a conversation, he said, "Now I don't know what my identity is." And why that bothers me is because any one of these jobs that we work for, once we're gone, we'll be replaced within 3 days. So once again, I ask you, who are you? Meaning, what is your identity? Because if you put in anything that is fleeting, like a title, like a job, once that thing is gone, you're left asking who you are. And when we're left asking who we are, we're being replaced within a few hours, a few days, max a week. One of the things that I was reading in Joshua, and it struck out to me, I was reading Joshua, this is a few months ago, but as I was reading Joshua, God told Joshua, I need you to be the next one to take over from Moses and lead the Israelites to the promised land. And Joshua, of course, did. He was very obedient. As Joshua is advancing through, he has to go through battle. And God told him this, you guys have to go through battle because I have to test you. That's a whole nother conversation we'll get into later on. But as they're going through battle, Joshua isn't referred to any title. He's not referred to as Joshua the warrior, Joshua the servant, Joshua the obedient one. Not at all. He's referred to as his name. In fact, when you read the text, it says Joshua and the Israelites, as though they're a boy band or something. Joshua and the Israelites took on this king. Joshua and the Israelites took on this king. And it's a repeat function. Every time Joshua went into battle, he's with the Israelites, but then they made a point to mention that everyone that he battled and that he won over wore the title. Now, what I'm saying is that I don't dismiss anyone that has a title. We put a lot of effort into our titles. Don't get it twisted. So for you, the doctors that are out there, the people who have acronyms behind their names, I have a few myself. So I'm not dismissing any of that. God gave us the wisdom, the knowledge to actually do those different things and the strength to do those different things. So I'm not dismissing that at all. But what I'm challenging is, what's your identity, though? Is your identity stuck to that title? If I were to ask you who you are, and the first thing you have to mention is what you do for a living, is that your identity? No, that's your job. That's not your identity. That's your job. So that's what I'm saying today. And I submit to you that I want you to understand that your identity isn't tied to a job whatsoever. Your identity is tied to your purpose. Your identity is tied to the gifts that God has given you. Now, my platform, I talk about gifts all the time. And the reason why I talk about that, because that is the first notion. Once you understand what your gift is, the world becomes your oyster. Why? Because now you have the principles and the foundation of what you need to do next. When you sit down and understand the gifts that God has given you, your no to different things becomes so much easier, because you know that, this isn't worth my while. I should not apply my gifts to this. And your yeses become so profound because now you understand exactly what you need to say yes to. Because gifts open doors. That comes from Proverbs. We know that the things I need to apply my gifts to are going to open more doors. So once again, I submit to you and I ask you this question: who are you? I want you to sit down and I want you to fully meditate on the question, who are you? All right. I pray this blesses you, and we're going to have more conversations like this, because I want you to fully understand what it means to have dominion on this earth. I want you to fully understand the gifts that God has given you. These gifts come from the Holy Spirit. When gifts come from the Holy Spirit, that means you've had them since birth. That means there's nothing you could do to get rid of these gifts. There's nothing you could do to gain more gifts. No, you've had these gifts since birth. You just got to open up. You have to tap in to see what these gifts are. All right. All right. I love y'all, and we'll wrap later. All right. Y'all be easy.